How much can you comprehend? And then take that comprehension into your life and apply it in your everyday choices and watch the difference those choices make in terms of the laws of the universe, cause and effect, action and reaction. As hard as this is to comprehend, the more invisible your choices are, the more powerful they are. It doesn't make sense to your rational mind because your rational mind wants to see the impact of your choices. And that's why you have to battle your ego to get to your power. And that's what the journey of life is all about, is your love of power versus getting to the power of love, because you cannot see love. And that is the battleground. So I always start a class repeating my silly little drawing here, but it's not. It's not. Because it really talks to you about the journey of your perceptual level, the journey of your soul, and the capacity of every person to make this trip inside of yourself, up the floors in yourself, for a different view of your own reality and a different view of reality. The first couple of floors is about your reality, and after that it's about reality. You have to get over your reality and then get into reality. Okay? It's like when someone says, they spend the first part, if not sometimes the whole of their life, asking the question, what is the purpose of my life? And you'll never get an answer to that. It's not until you ask, what is the purpose of life and where do I fit into that? Then you'll get an answer. But the difference in that question is cosmic. Cosmic. You finally realize life was not built for you. You were built for life. And you finally begin to understand the way prayers are answered. Heaven cannot address your questions when you think heaven serves you. It is you who serve heaven. So when you demand, why is my life not working? Why is it failing? What? And it is you who set yourself on a course to discover what it is to be humble. Because heaven does not serve you. It will help you, but it doesn't serve you. So to tell yourself you were born for something special is delusional. You were born to be of service to the whole. And now you have to find that route. And you find that route by understanding how the whole of life works and how do I work with the way life works. And then life works with me and through me. Am I making sense to you here? And if you look at the way where there is this great logjam in creation, is that for the first time in the history of humanity, this toxic thought form that I was born for something special has taken hold. Has taken hold. And so you have all these human beings thinking they were born for something special, and it's made them uncooperative with the whole. And at the same time, I just explained it, I mean, it's quite astonishing. It's as if every one of your molecules, I'm always going to take it back to your micro-earth. If every one of your cells decided that it was unique and needed special treatment, you would be dying of cancer. You could not function. It's precisely because every cell knows that it must cooperate with the whole that you are vital and healthy. The moment one of the cells steps out and goes rogue, you're in trouble. And that same law applies to the whole. What is important to understand in light, law, and love is that the laws that apply to the cosmos apply to your biology. It's a bio-spiritual ecology, which I believe is the next theology. So I get so excited that I gotta reel myself in. And really, I have to follow even the map. I was up since 5 in the morning, and I start making my notes again at 6, because I am determined to stay on a course. But when I start, I can't help myself. Everything starts fitting in, because I think like a hologram these days, and I see how this goes with this and this, because this is how, and I'm determined to teach you in a linear way, but I can't, because I'm a hologram. So, but if you stick with me, it'll all work out. So I'm going to start with this, so that I really want you to think of yourself as a building. And to get that this really is a consciousness, and that every floor is a different view of your reality. And this is something you can take with you for the rest of your life. I use this all the time. Whenever I find myself losing power, and that's something we're going to emphasize in this workshop, whenever you find yourself losing power with something, even in a thought form, even in a relationship, even in a lawsuit, even no matter what it is, you've got to get to a different floor. You are on the wrong floor. You are on a disempowering view, and you've got to get out of there. And I'm going to hit a pause button here. And you may say to me, you've got to be kidding. I'm not kidding you, because the only thing this life is about is you discovering how powerful you are. That's all this life is about, is you discovering how powerful your consciousness is. And that you ultimately realize that the most powerful gear in your consciousness is the sacred one. And when you finally reach the sacred altitude, and it's this altitude that runs the grace currents. It's this altitude that runs the power to heal others. Where literally your body no longer has to travel anywhere. You close your eyes and your soul does the work. And that's called working through the internet. And letting the prayer and light, law, and love. You finally understand how the invisible world is wired, and that the physical world has simply duplicated what has always existed in the mystical realm, which is the internet to the internet. And energy mail is really soul mail. And I've told this story 1,000 million times. You know the story of that woman who took me back from a workshop when I was in England, who told me about her near-death experience. You know that one, right? You all know that one. Well, honest to God, sometimes you never know when you're going to hear one of the greatest stories of your life. And it came at a time when I was at the craziest workshop of my life. I mean, the craziest. I mean, to this day, I have not been at a more absurd workshop. They were expecting 3,000 people, 10 people showed up. Oh. Not kidding you. I am not kidding you. I could exaggerate and I could not do this. I'm sitting on the stage, and the person who hosted it looks at me and says, "I can't do this," and she passed out. She was so overwhelmed. The night before, and David and my dear Beth, they know this wonderful friend Penny in London, and the night before, the host was hosting some of the speakers. We were in this restaurant in London, and we're sitting there, And she had ordered the menu ahead of time, and so they came with what we call appetizers, they call starters. And the starter was spaghetti bolognese. And then came the dinner, and the dinner was spaghetti bolognese. All right? And my friend Penny leans over and says, I don't think this is boding well for the workshop. Okay, it's supposed to be a big conference. Okay, so then the conference, and then this happens. It just went from bad to worse. It just got absolutely. And so I can't, because it's being recorded, tell you really how. No, I will not. But after they stop recording this evening, I will tell you the rest. At any rate, by the time this was done, I was done. And this woman says, I'm your ride to London. And so I get in the car, and she says, let me tell you my story. And honestly, I went, no. And actually, it was this way, because they were driving. But I had to, because she was driving, and we had a way to go. And I said, okay. And I thought, it's going to be another one of those, well, I got it on the inner, and blah, 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 blah. And she says, well, you know, I had a bad accident about 6 years ago, she said, and I was killed. I had a near-death experience. And honestly, really, I was engaged to the man who did a lot of the research on near-death experiences. And I used to be around these near-deathers all the time, and as they call themselves. It's not my nickname for them. And she said, I found myself hovering over my body. And she said, I saw my body. It was smashed, and I was crushed. And she said, but the amazing thing, really, she said, was I could hear the responses of everybody in the cars behind my smashed automobile. She said, I could hear them. She said, and they were saying, oh, Jesus, damn it, this is just what I need. How long is this going to take? And she said, she said, I was dying. And that was what they were thinking. And she said, but out of the fifth car came this beam of light shooting way into the heavens and then right into my body. And she said, and I thought, what is that? And she said, I found myself sitting next to this woman who had immediately gone into prayer for me. For me. She said, and then I saw the prayers being delivered to me. And she said, and I wondered, who is this woman? And then I was shown her, what you call that thing on the car, license plate. And she said, when I recovered, I found her. And I went to her house, and I gave her flowers, and I said, I know you prayed for me. And I want to thank you. I heard those prayers. So this is one of, look, I wrote a book on prayer. This is one of endless, endless stories I can tell you about how powerful one prayer is. How powerful one is, how powerful one of your thoughts are, how powerful one of your acts of kindness is that is delivered immediately to that person. And what you have to know is how powerful one of your negative thoughts is. That too is delivered. So what I am going to emphasize with you in our brief time together is that you really need to shift gears and incorporate your light anatomy, your energetic but your light system as your main power source. That your physical body is the caboose on your train. That you start thinking of yourself as a being of light, that when you shine your light upon someone, you really are shining your light upon them. That actually means something. That actually really is a profound act of grace. A profound act of grace. A profound holy act. And that you don't have to leave your house to do that. It is taken care of by intention. That what matters and what really matters and what you are held accountable for, and believe me, you are the intentions that determine what you do. And you cannot fool heaven. You cannot, because heaven is a law system. Heaven is a system of law. God is law. God is not Catholic, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, no such thing. Human beings have religions. And they've done nothing but cause trouble. The cosmos is a religion-free zone. The divine is nothing but law, and the intimacy is through prayer. And that's the way it is. And if it doesn't feel right to you, leave it here when you leave here. But you really have to go a distance to argue with something that is universally truth. And that the law applies equally to your biosystem as it does to every creature of nature, as it does to all systems of life, as it does to the cosmos. This is the organic divinity. God hidden in your blood and your bones, in your heart and in your breath. And this is where you realize every law that I set in motion, this is the nature of God. This is it. So how you have to understand yourself is as a system of power. And I'm going to hit a pause button here. And I'm going to say that you become aware, just think for a moment, of how in these generations, us, previous, that since nuclear age, since we the people of the nuclear age, we have been motivated and compelled by impulses that have never existed before. For example, empowerment. The gathering of power, the collecting of power, having power, that's always been. So if we look back at through history, people have always wanted stuff and things and fortresses and castles and whatever the kind of nonsense that they think is power. If I have more bricks around me, more stuff around me, more garbage in a bank, then I have more power than you. This is how primates think. You know, I just have to have more and more stuff. And my wall has to be higher and this kind of thing. And human beings have always been afraid of other human beings. I'm afraid of you. Why? I don't know why, but I just am. You know, the idea that we are primarily killers or something, we could have approached each other as welcome in. We've chosen to do otherwise because we're afraid of our stuff. So let's just get it there. We're stuffologists. Okay. But since the nuclear age, we've entered this age of energy. We've shifted and gone into the energy. The first thing you do in the morning is you plug yourself into your energy world. You check your energy mail. You check your energy universe. And that's your parallel universe. All the things in your energy universe. And the speed of your energy universe. And that is really, really, really something you have to kind of gather, that the energy universe has reshaped us to where what we consider power is now redefined as our energy. So we've reshaped our vocabulary to think, I have to find my power. Who has my power? Every one of you, though you may not have consciously thought, you know what? I think self-esteem is a big deal. You have become aware that self-esteem is a big deal. It has become your central battery. It has become a major battery in you. And though you may not get this, the reason is because Every human being needs to recognize how powerful their energy or their soul is. And they have to become very careful about how they use their soul, the power of their soul. And I don't want you to hear that word religiously. I want you to hear that word as pure grace, about what you empower, when you empower something. The power of making one decision, of deciding to get attached to an issue and what that will cost you in terms of your cell tissue. When someone says to me, I'm so upset about what? Well, that person said this. Said what? I didn't like their attitude. I said, well, bring their attitude to me in a box and we'll talk about it. It's something you have contrived in your head. It's a subjective thing, but you have no idea how much it'll cost you. You got upset because it hit yourself. And you haven't yet developed enough self to get to a place where you can discern, a big word here, discern. I'm not getting attached to that. This person would say that to anybody. You haven't yet developed enough self to get to the place where you are impersonal about what happens in your life. Impersonal. Instead of taking everything personally. And getting to the place where you realize this is an impersonal universe. It's not personal. If you take everything personal, you will never survive. So, this is where we're going. That's all about the management of your power and how the management of this power is reflected on how you manage your health. This determines that. How you manage your fuel, your life force, determines your bio-spiritual ecology. And in turn, all of this determines the speed at which change happens to you, the speed of synchronicity, the speed of cause and effect, the speed at which all things flow with you. All of that. The speed at which you heal. The speed at which you comprehend. The speed at which energy medicine works with you. If it can even work with you. So, I just want to kind of go through this a little bit so that you kind of get an idea of where you are, and I'm going to take it slow, and I'm going to take it with you, and you're going to write down you. So you kind of have a sense of where you are in your own building, and why and how you would fight becoming more conscious, and where you would fight that, and why you would fight that, and that fight is played out not just in your body, but in the whole of your ecology, and what you need to really begin to grasp is that you fighting becoming more conscious is an issue that is played out in your biology and in the ecology of your life. It all goes together. It's a bio-spiritual ecological system. In other words, it happens on your whole earth. There's no such thing as one issue that is isolated anywhere in your life. Just get that. Now, before I jump in, you got any questions so far? I got one. I'll only take a few. I just love being the teacher because it's my way or no way. But after 5, I can give you guys some, leeway. But yeah.
I have a question about law. I can understand how light and love are energies, but I'm not clear on what you mean by law and how that's an energy.
Okay, law is, there's the laws of the universe, the laws of nature, the laws of science, like gravity, right? That's a law. Cause and effect is a law. If I hit something, it's going to have an effect. Yes. The law of balance. All the law. Every single architect follows the laws to keep a building standing. There's the laws of science that govern. There's the laws of nature that govern our body. There are things that we can eat, we cannot. There's the laws. Every single thing in life is governed by natural law. Everything. Every single thing. When you see a parent abusing a child, you react to it at several levels, but the deepest is that it is against the law of our nature for a parent to abuse one of its young. So while you visually recoil, the deeper offense, and no one had to tell you, parents don't eat their young. Do you see what I'm saying? There are laws that we are born knowing. We are born knowing not to steal. We're actually born knowing not to lie. That something is wrong with not telling the truth. Which is why in every culture, people were punished from the get-go for lying. And it was always considered one of the greatest crimes ever. And Jesus always said, the worst person is a liar. Imagine what he thinks of, well, never mind. I didn't say that. I thought it. But that's what a demon looks like. But the worst person is a liar. It's against the law of our soul. We're not supposed to use our power to deceive others. And so there's physical laws, but the physical laws reflect mystical laws. Mystical laws. The laws you cannot see, but they govern us. The mystical laws that actually speak, I'll spend a lot of time on this, to our intuitive system that is now wired to our system of guidance is completely wired to the mystical laws. So from the get-go, you have a sense that works this fast. If I do this, what will happen? And you have a sense of the cause and effect that works at the speed of light. So you know what happens if you break this law. You know it that fast. Now in the physical world, it may take 2 months for the law to catch up with breaking something. But in the mystical world, where co-creation is an active force, it takes less than that because you're working with light and law. This is where miracles happen because it works in instantaneous. It's another way, as I take you up here, and you get past your personal life and you get into the rules of life. What a miracle is something that happens outside ordinary time and space. But you understand the speed of a miracle if you understand the technology of light. It's not complicated. You understand the technology of light if you understand psychic weight and how you acquire weight by attachments. And that the less attachments you have, the less weight you have, which is the less weight you have, and the more you become a creature of light. That's why this is the formula through which so many mystics, whether in the Eastern tradition or the West, like Teresa of Avila or many gurus, they end up levitating. They have more light in them than matter. Are you following me? This is why every time we have attachments, and this is how I learned this, doing all these readings through decades, what I realized I was reading was what I started to call your anchors. And I would read your anchors and what it would cost you to be attached to something or someone or something you just can't get rid of. And why all great spiritual teachers would say, why are you carrying the dead? What are you doing here? Why are you carrying this? People carried it because the mythology you carry is it only happened to you. Your pain is so great. Poor you. And while it's true, personal pain is horrific. What do you want to do about it? What do you want life to do about it? You can't undo it. You can scream forever, my pain is so horrible, my pain is so horrible. And what do you want everybody who hears you to do about it? They can't undo it. There's courts of justice, but you know what? For all the justice, no matter how much money someone gets, they're still not done with their rage. It's never enough. It's not until a person melts that part of themselves that thinks they were entitled to something else. So the real pain is the belief that it should never have happened to them in the first place, that they were entitled to a different journey entirely. That they were being cheated out of a different kind of life. The real anger at the archetypal level, way up here, is at God, is at their life, is the inability to accept the way their life is unfolding or the package they came in or somehow that they don't have both legs, whatever it is. And it's not until they get the larger cosmos of their life that says, what do you want me to do with the package you gave me? Obviously, this is the package you gave me, and I am not working this right. And somehow this horribleness had to happen. I don't know why, but I'm tired of fighting the flow. I'm tired of fighting that somehow I have to get way up here and put my life into the whole instead of thinking the whole has disappointed my one life. I've got the mathematics of it wrong. And while it doesn't erase my suffering, it liquidates it into the suffering of the whole that says human life is a suffering journey. And maybe next time it won't suffer so much, maybe last time, I don't know. But somehow by liquidating your suffering into the suffering of everybody, everybody starts carrying a little bit of your pain and you don't even get it. And you start releasing it. And gradually you realize, my shoulders aren't so bent, my heart is not so heavy. And that's how forgiveness and the collective come to your rescue. It's mystical mathematics, to put it that way. Am I making sense here? But you have to start working with your light. And it really is a part of the whole. And one of the great, huge challenges is for people to actually see themselves as part of the whole. Because you have been so accustomed to thinking you ride this life alone. And that every choice you make, everything is just about you. Now, so your first floor, life in your first floor, and here the big word is that we're going to focus on is power and how you see your world. Law. Did I finish answering that question at all? I have to double check myself. I do, because I start rambling. Look at this. I go, put a leash on me. It's just that there's so much to know about everything. And everything about it is so fascinating. And if you get just one part of it, that you realize my body is a system of law and it talks to me 24/7. Because my body is alive. And it's a conscious being that wants to stay healthy and conscious. So that if I ask my body, should I eat this? And it says no. I told you before, no. And I shove this in my mouth. I am now breaking the law. And I have to own that. You don't tell yourself anymore. Thought of something. You don't tell yourself anymore that you will behave yourself tomorrow. Because your body doesn't believe you. So we're going to talk about faith and what trust and faith is tomorrow. But your body doesn't believe you. And this has to do with healing, and this has to do with keeping the laws and making rules and making it work, about realizing that honoring the laws you have is the whole of what it means to live a conscious life. But in this first level, I want to explain religion, I want to explain tribe, I want to explain your connections. Because this first level of life, without structure, we would be lawless. And that is a fact. And so in this first level of everybody's floor, I want you to picture your world, your life, and that's the first floor of your life. So this is the floor where you actually see your life, where I'm actually on the street, Forest Avenue, where I live, where my house is behind me and my family's around me. This room is here for me, where I see my students, where I see you and I can go and touch you and I can squeeze you. This is where Debbie and Lynn get me in trouble when we go shopping together. This is our first floor. So this is where you experience it. This is where your five senses are. So this is your five sensory world. Now this is a big deal to emphasize because this is where I'm 5'6". So this is where I am from a Polish-German background. I can't change that. I can't change that I grew up in a Catholic, Polish-German, Chicago home, educated by Catholic nuns and priests till I was 29. Half the time in a convent. Not kidding. I loved every minute of it. Every single minute. I wouldn't have it any other way. So this is your reality. This was your functional reality. This is a big deal because this is the place where you learned subjective reality. And this is the place where you first encountered your myths of how this universe works. On this floor is where you were first introduced to superstitions. To what you, and believe you me, when I do readings on people, you are so connected here. This is where you run for cover. This is where someone goes, spits for luck. I don't know if that person's in the room, but to keep away bad spirits. What do you do to keep away bad spirits? How many of you have little things to keep luck? That's right here. Right here. This is your place of irrational beliefs that have no basis in fact, but they own you. And that is a big deal. This is in your first floor. So this is when you look out the window and you see the least amount of the world, so you fear it the most, and it's based on stuff that you've shoved in this floor, but you have no basis in fact. This is where you will speak like this. All those people do that. So how many of you say that? Okay? You have no basis in fact. You haven't met all those people. Now what you have to, I'm going to transfer you over here. You're connected to those thought forms. Just so you get the whole ecology of you, all of those nonsensical thought forms that are not based in truth but fear, they're based in prejudice and they're based in fear, you are connected to, you are anchored in. And so let's do this whole thing. You're anchored in, okay? When I grew up, only Catholics go to heaven. I was anchored in that. But what is the dark side of that? It means all of you. Right? There's no helping you guys, right? Okay, now, and it was intended to be that, so we stayed away from you. We couldn't date you guys. We couldn't marry you guys. My God, who had the baby? The Catholics or them, right? So, this kind of separatism and negativity, to just play it out so you understand law. This is now the use of cause and effect, action and reaction. But it's bigger than that. And this, I pray you get this. This is the power of my system. It is now being directed. It is now being hijacked into an illusion. That illusion has creative power. And it is hijacked into a non-truth, a lie. That lie is then blended with the collective lie that all kinds of people were taught as well. This collective lie becomes a huge, powerful magnet. What's one of the laws of the universe? Magnetic attraction. So this little molecule finds the big molecule, and more molecules collect. And what is the law of creation? Energy generates matter. This becomes a huge system of thinking. It becomes a thinking pattern. An archetypal, here's the earth, here's earth. It becomes an archetypal influence. And it influences thought forms, which influence choice, which influence society, which then influence policy. And that's how co-creation happens. And your soul is a participant. This is how co-creation happens. Are you with me here? All right. So if you think your vote doesn't count, if you think you don't count, if you think you don't have power, you don't get how much power you have. What do you think becoming conscious is all about? If not becoming conscious of, oh my God, I've got to disconnect from that. My God, I have been financing a lie. I got to get my soul out of that. Why do you think it's so important when you hear parents saying, I've got to get my kid away from that cult? And how hard it is to get their soul out of a cult system. They are literally getting their soul out of a gravity field in which their consciousness was taken over. And I remember growing up hearing things, get a child young and they're a Catholic forever. And that's true for a lot of things. Get a kid in the military, get anything young, and you've captured their psychic field because it's so young and ripe. And it's this floor I'm talking to you about. And it's this floor where Buddha said it's all full of illusions. So many, you don't even know how much you are directed by illusions. You haven't got a clue how many things in your life you have believed that have no truth to it. All of you were taught there's no life out there. So all of you have to be untaught that. All of you, we were all taught that there's no proof that there's life in other galaxies. We all have to be untaught that. None of us was ever taught growing up that our thoughts have power to co-create. We all have to be taught that anew. None of us were taught that our thoughts, our attitudes, our beliefs were participants in the creation of our health, much less the health of our life. We have to unlearn the world we grew up in and learn anew how powerful we are. And that is an incredible task because the world you grew up in made you passive, docile, and lazy. You are not accustomed to being an active participant in creation. You are an observer, but not a participant. And it's very, very different to be a participant. To become very, very conscious of what it is you're thinking and what it is you're believing, and to actively say, I've got to adjust this, and shift the floors that you're on. Because when you do, you realize you are actively shifting the whole of your life. Someone said to me, I was just with someone very dear to me who said, you know, ever since I've been working on my health and working on different and opening up and seeing the world differently, I also find that I cannot participate in the same kinds of conversations that I've used to have with people who see the world in certain ways. And what I know he was saying was, I'm moving to a different floor. And he said, I find that I need to be with people who are more open-minded, who are more compassionate, who see what's happening. And so what he was saying to me was, I'm moving up a floor in my language. So what I know he will experience is he will eventually have to say goodbye to these people or see them less frequently. And it's not, oh, what a shame. It's not, he's going to meet a whole new configuration of companions, and he will rise to soul companions instead of social companions. And that's the difference. Soul companions who blend their molecules consciously. What if we committed our molecules together consciously? What could we do? You could change the world. Now you're doing it unconsciously. But if you did it consciously, that's what consciousness is about. You could change the world. So, first floor. I need you to kind of just answer a couple of questions. It's for the hell of it. Just so you can, I want to get you walking on your first floor. So you get a sense of what it feels like in your life and how well you don't know yourself. So that you sense like what your first floor actually, what the view from your first floor is. So when you're in the first floor of your life, put yourself in your hood, put yourself in your house, put yourself and when you're there, here's my first question, is how aware are you? And yeah, write it down. I'm not talking to myself. Write it down. You have to answer these questions because you're going to share your answers, but you have to write it down because I'll tell you something, if you don't make an answer come all the way through you, you're not answering it at all. When you're in your life under ordinary, just ordinary all the time, how aware are you that the world is on fire and that the world is changing? And do you tell yourself, for example, everything's going to be all right? What do you tell yourself? What's your dialogue when you're in your first floor? Like I have friends that say, I don't watch the news, I don't want to watch the news, everything's going to be fine. Nothing's going to be fine. Everything's changing. What do you tell yourself when you're in your first floor? What do you sense is changing in the world? What do you sense is changing in the world and in your world? It's your first question. Your second question is, what do you identify in your first floor that you know is simply not true, but that's the way you want it? Sure. Like this. Here's something that I know is not true. Some things stay forever, but I want it. Okay? And I still live like that's true. And I'll tell you how, and every now and again, you go into a cycle that shows you it's not true. So for example, I just lost my dog. My mom is aging, and she's going through a rapidness of that at 94. There are many things in my life right now. I could live for a period of a few years in which that belief, and it's classic first floor, everything's just fine. It looks like, here's the law. One of the laws of the universe is that things change constantly, it's always in motion. How could you not see that? There's not a tree that stands still. Everything is always in motion, okay? My dog was dying a little bit more every day. My mother's getting a little, it's just happening every day, every day, every day. So if you tell yourself something like it's going to be all right, you are just bold-faced lying to get through it. Okay? That's a classic first floor thing. It's classic. And then one day, all the walls come down. And so one day, a few weeks ago, all the walls came down. That is classic first floor. You don't want things to change. So you are telling yourself life is really not the way life really is. But when you get to a higher altitude, you can only see life the way it is. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And even though I quickly can retrieve myself, it doesn't mean that I don't want it to be otherwise. It doesn't mean that I don't know it's otherwise. Am I, you know, and it's like with COVID. I want everything to go, it's never going to go back. Nothing ever goes backwards. So you can long for nostalgia on your first floor, for the way things were. In your hood, for example, restaurants that are no more. But the fact is, nothing goes backwards. And so the truth, the higher truth is, we have to only evolve forward. And if you listen to, if you go for guidance and say, what should I do? What do you want me to do? I assure you, the only guidance you will ever get will lead you forward. I promise you, you will never get guidance that turns you to look backwards. What did you do yesterday? Do the same thing. You will never, ever, ever, ever hear that. Never. Because that's not how heaven works. There is no yesterday for heaven. You please brand that in your soul. You will never hear guidance like that. You will only hear how to go forward, how to move in that direction. So this floor is filled with illusions that we have to battle. Are you with me?